regular meeting of the San Ramon Planning Commission. We are calling this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Item 2, roll call. Can the recording secretary please conduct the roll call?
Commissioner Alpert,
Here.
Commissioner Avila,
Here.
Commissioner Wallace,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Curtis,
Present.
and Chair Kuznick.
I am here. Okay, item number 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. If the audience will join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 4, public comments or written communications. At this time, members of the public may address the Planning Commission on any item not already included in tonight's agenda. If you would like to speak, please fill out a speaker card located in the back of the room and submit it to the recording secretary. We will not be taking any public comment via Zoom. Do we have any cards on this item?
I have no speaker cards or written communication for this item.
Very good. Thank you so much. We'll move on to item number 5, additions and revisions. Are there any changes for the agenda here, commissioners? Seeing none, we will move on. Item number 6, the consent calendar. 6.1, minutes of the Planning Commission regular meeting, June 3rd, 2025. Is there a motion on the consent calendar or an item you would like to pull?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the minutes of the Planning Commission regular meeting of June 3rd, 2025.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. We will vote. Okay, so the motion has passed 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Item number 7, continued items after the closing of the public hearing. There are none. Item number 8, continued items. Open the public hearing. There are none. Item 9, public hearing, new items. There are none. Item number 10, non-public hearing action items. There are none. Which leads us to item number 11, study session. Commissioner liaison report and interest items. Item 11.1, canopy, Bishop Ranch number 8, residential development study session. As a reminder to the commission, this is a study session. This is a study session item for us to provide initial feedback on the project to staff and the applicant. The applications have not been deemed complete as such. No detailed analysis has been completed, and the project may be amended to address completeness and review comments. Staff will receive your comments and continue to review the application for completeness. Oops, pardon me. We have 11 point. Yep, go ahead. Annalisa.
And then I don't think your mic is on.
Well, hello.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this evening we have a study session for the Canopy at Bishop Ranch 8 residential development project located at 3,000, 4,000, and 5,000 Executive Parkway. The project site is approximately 27 acres within the downtown mixed-use North General Plan and Zoning designation. The project proposes to demolish the 3 existing office buildings on site and construct 412 housing units, including 255 single-family units and 157 multifamily units. Formal applications were submitted on June 3rd and are still under review. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Good evening, Chair Kuznick and Planning Commissioners. On behalf of Sunset Development, I'm Stephanie Hill. We appreciate the opportunity to provide the summary of Bishop Ranch 8 redevelopment, which we are calling Canopy. As highlighted throughout our Bishop Ranch presentations, a central goal is to support a range of housing options, both rental and ownership, market rate and affordable, to attract a diverse mix of households to downtown San Ramon. Canopy is envisioned as a walkable neighborhood featuring 412 homes. This includes 255 for-sale single-family homes and a 157-unit affordable rental community developed by Eden Housing, the second affordable community within Bishop Ranch. The single-family homes will be detached, ranging from 2 to 3 stories. The 5-story affordable building located at Bishop Drive and Executive Parkway reflects the scale of the 5 to 7-story residential buildings planned across the street in City Walk, while considering its adjacency to the 2 to 3-story homes within Canopy. The site design and landscaping are both intended to reinforce connections with adjacent neighborhoods, including City Village to the east, City Walk to the south, and the broader walking district. The Executive Parkway frontage will link Canopy to Bartlett Pear Park and the Iron Horse Trail. Joining me this evening are members of our project team, WHA, the for-sale residential architect, Van Dorn, our landscape architect, Steinberg Hart, the multifamily architect, Eden Housing, the affordable developer. I'll now turn it over to Robert Lee from WHA, who will walk through the surrounding site context and provide more detail on the for-sale portion of our community.
Good evening. My name is Robert Lee, Senior Principal at WHA Architecture and Planning. Glad to be here tonight. Our office is also based here in San Ramon. I'm also a resident of San Ramon, so it's very nice to be a part of this project locally. The project here presented, as just stated, is 27 acres, is situated on the site plan, Bishop Ranch 8. And what you see on prompt is the connectivity, but we see the opportunity for the pedestrian, bicycle and vehicle to connect throughout the city walk. Short walk away from the city center and short walk from several of the neighborhood parks within the city walk area and the Central Park and City Hall. And of course, we have the Iron Horse Trail on the green, kind of going north and south, or on this page, going east and west. There's also many circulation for bicycles, class 1, class 2s, and class 4, outlined in pink. And then several of the pedestrian walkability opportunities throughout the project. Here's the site plan representing the 412 units. 157 is on the corner in yellow. That is the 5-story affordable housing. And then there are 3 residential villages that makes up the 255 residential units, each one kind of representing different type of density and different type of housing opportunities. The highest density one is the one outlined in purple. We have about 126 of those homes. And of those 126, we have 93 of those that offers JADUs and ADU opportunities on the ground floors. The houses range from approximately 1,800 square feet up to 2,600 square feet, and they're all 3 stories with a bedroom and ADU option on the ground floor. Each one of these offers a 2-car garage and also private backyards. They do have balconies on the second level to offer additional private open space for the residents. The second village is the one in kind of salmon color. That has approximately 65 residential units. Those are made up of 2-story homes as well as 3-story homes. The 3rd story is an optional bonus room with an outdoor deck that's covered. Those homes range from 2,400 up to 3,043 square feet. And they will also offer the opportunity, oops, I guess I can move the slide a little bit. Here's the elevation for Village 1 that represents the 3-story homes. There's 5 floor plans in altogether, and they range from 3-bedroom to 4-bedroom units. Village 2, as I mentioned, these are the homes that are primary 2 stories with third story option to provide additional bonus room. They range from 2,400 square feet and up to 3,040 square feet with 4 bedrooms and 2-car garage and a private backyard. And these are the elevation for the 2 stories. We didn't show the 3-story option on this one, but I'll show you that on Village 3. Village 3 represents about 64 homes, and they also have some ADU opportunities on the ground floor. And they range from 4 bedrooms to 5 bedrooms. The one with the 5 bedroom will offer a 3-car garage. The Plan 2 has a 2-car garage with also a uncovered driveway parking space for the individual home. These also have plenty of backyard space and side yards and front yard. They're kind of designed in a kind of a motor court as well as a front conventional single-family homes. And those are allocated towards the little key map on the bottom in blue towards the east side of the project. These are the elevation for the 2-story on the top, plans 1, 2, and 3, and then the 3-story on the bottom. Those are provide optional bonus rooms on the 3rd level with a covered deck. And the bonus rooms adds an additional 386 to 400 square feet on top of the base 2-story plans. We also offer 12 variety of colors and materials with comp shingle roofs, stucco, fiber cement sidings, metal railings, and they offer a nice little variety of colors and tones for the project. Now I'm going to hand it over to our landscape architect, kind of go through the landscape. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Zeki Abed with Van Dorn Abed Landscape Architects. We're excited to have this opportunity to participate in the design of this project. Looking at the overall site plan, you can see we have several large contiguous landscape areas on this project. We have a generous central green belt with both passive and active use areas for residents and visitors, an 80-foot wide deep landscape area along Executive Parkway street frontage with a detached sidewalk, an improved and widened meandering sidewalk along Bishop Drive with a wide landscape buffer, and lastly, a mid-block secondary greenway adjacent to the affordable housing building, connecting pedestrians from Bishop Drive into the Canopy community. Is it a right button to advance or? Oh, no, okay. Got it. This image here is an enlargement of the Greenbelt community open space. We have the unique opportunity on the site, which is quite rare, to provide a visually contiguous large community open space. And this one is approximately 2.9 acres in size. This green belt includes both passive and active use areas for all age groups, residents, and visitors. The open space is flanked at each end with 2 entry plazas with curved trellises, seat walls, benches, and bike racks. Other amenities include a nature-themed tot lot play area, varied seating areas with seat walls, benches, picnic tables, cafe-style tables, and shade trellises. Meandering walking paths connect to the seating areas and several usable lawn areas, allowing for multiple outdoor activities and social gathering opportunities. Separating the public and common area are the residences. There will be layered massings of native and ornamental shrub planting, shade trees, and flowering accent trees for both visual and textural interest. In summary, this usable community green encourages residents to congregate, socialize outside their homes, and provides a varied usable common area for all ages and demographics of the neighborhood, with pedestrian connectivity to the more public streetscapes and sidewalks, which in turn link the larger community and neighborhood as a whole. Oops, went too far. On this image here, you see the Executive Parkway landscape buffer. There is an approximately 80-foot wide open space running along Executive Parkway streetscape with bioretention, a detached sidewalk, and large canopy trees to match the street trees at the adjacent city village community. So we continued that same theme of street trees along the rest of this executive parkway. This area not only functions as the necessary C3 biofiltration basin for stormwater treatment, but it also provides a wide landscape buffer from the street, absorbing vehicular noise and creating privacy for the residences. The bioretention area will be planted with a variety of inundation-tolerant grasses, native and naturalized shrubs, and trees providing habitat for birds, butterflies, bees, and other beneficial pollinators. This next section is Executive Parkway at Bishop Drive Corner. This landscape treatment basically at the intersection will have the same planting theme with a bioswale at the streetscape, a pretty wide landscape buffer, not quite as wide as along the residential portion, but still would be provide a necessary buffer and a nice protection for from the building. This is Bishop Ranch Drive. So turning the corner at Bishop Ranch Drive, we have improved the connectivity with a wider 8-foot detached meandering sidewalk and planting buffer. And then we also have tall columnar trees to complement the 6-story facade of the affordable housing structure. So this basically ends our description. Thank you for your time. Looking forward to your comments.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here again. My name is Angshupriya Pathak with Steinberg Hart Architects. As I mentioned the last time I was here, Steinberg Hart has been around for 75 years, and we believe in creating the world we want. And we have been doing that for the last 75 years by focusing on strengthening our communities through housing design. So I will start presenting the multifamily component. Just this. Oh, yeah. Thank you. So what you're looking at is our approach to the massing of the multifamily component. So on the top left is what we started with. And our approach was to connect to the framework of the surrounding neighborhood. The overall mass is dissected at, you'll see the strategic intersections that connect with the street vistas of the single-family lots. And then from there on, we started thinking about how do we break this down further to relate to the surrounding scale. So what we started doing was then we started breaking the masses down to smaller segments that relate to the neighborhood lot scale. So we started looking at, okay, so if this is 1x, the width of the lot is 1x, so maybe we carry this rhythm across through, 1.5, we break it down with, introducing a notch where the vertical circulation would live. So that's how we took it a step further with the breakup of the massing. And then what we wanted to do was create perimeter gateways to the neighborhood. So we started expressing the corners to create key moments of connection, to reinforce the link to the neighbors, and then also establishing a front door to the Canopy neighborhood, because we are at this prime intersection of Executive Drive and, with Bishop at the corner, as well as A Street to the east. So we really bring, the function of being a gateway to the entire community. So we also wanted to acknowledge and create a compatible material palette. So we started deriving our inspiration from the single-family material finishes, to establish a cohesive language for the Canopy neighborhood. So you're looking at the ground floor plan, and I wanted to mention reiterate that we have 157 units with 135 parking spaces and a unit mix of about 49% one-bedroom units, 26% two-bedroom units, and 25% three-bedroom units. So So now what you're looking at is Executive Parkway is to the south and A Street is to the east. And so we strategically locate the entry plaza and the entry lobby at this prime intersection. And it, as I mentioned before, it acts as a gateway to the entire canopy site. This is a single-story parking podium on the plan, and it accommodates car, bicycle, and motorcycle parking for the residents. It is naturally ventilated. The trash room and the back of house utilities are located to the northeast, the light gray that you see. The vehicular entry is at the east, and it is offset from E Street, flanking the east, at the adjacent single-family community. And then the passive landscape to the north acts as a buffer between the multifamily component and the single-family units to the north. And then the entry to the back of house and the trash is also accommodated at that northeast corner. It also is a access for the fire truck. And then the curved wall that you see at the west is adjacent to Bishop Drive and is responsive to the curved walkway, the pedestrian walkway adjacent to it. Now, this is the upper floor plan. The upper 4 levels comprise of the 157 units and also community amenities. The units, as you will see, are pulled back from the edge of the podium at the west to create additional buffer from the freeway. And then the interior courtyard is segmented into active and passive zones. The active areas are flanked by the after-school space, the community room, and the fitness room to the north and the east. And then the more passive and private areas are adjacent to the units at the south and the west. Now, the active zone comprises of a play structure, and then there's a spillover patio area, which really becomes an expansion of the community spaces and can act as one flowing space when there are events and such. Let's see, the passive zone also allows this is to the south west corner of the courtyard. It allows for seating and small group gatherings at the barbecue. And then the podium area at the west is passively treated with landscape. It allows for a visual break for the units facing the freeway to the west. And then it also allows for, small getaway seating for the residents who want to get away from the humdrum at the interior courtyard. So here are some of our renderings. And then to the top right is what you're looking at is that prime intersection, the gateway into the canopy community. So you're looking at the lobby, which is the glazed storefront system. So that's at the southeast corner. And then as you go down, that column to the right is looking straight on at that lobby to the left. And what I forgot to mention was that we have these breezeways connecting these critical moments where we break the massing, as I was mentioning before. So what you see is the breezeway in that second image to the right. And then also, again, looking down at the intersection at the breezeway and the lobby at the bottom. And then as you go to the left column, so you're at the intersection of Executive Parkway and Bishop Drive. So you start seeing how we peel away at the corners and create these critical glimpses into what's happening inside. And then that's the second image is the perspective along Bishop Drive at the southwest. So you'll see that the garage is screened. It's, as I mentioned, it's naturally ventilated, and we carry some of the screening that wrap the breezeway moments and carry that same language as a screening for the garage. And then the bottom left is a perspective along Bishop Drive. And I will hand it over to Stephanie.
And then just to close, I'd like to summarize Canopy's alignment with the DMU North zoning. The site is designated as a housing opportunity site and is eligible to be developed as 100% residential. Eden Housing's affordable community satisfies the city's inclusionary housing ordinance and qualifies Canopy for the state density bonus law, including applicable concessions, incentives, and waivers. Currently, the development is using a parking reduction permitted through state density bonus for the multifamily community. We're happy to answer any questions you may have and appreciate any feedback you may have on what we've presented this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So commissioners, this is for clarifying questions.
I have some clarifying questions for both staff and the applicant. I first want to start off with questions related to, I guess, the overall site in general. So, I think I was a little bit confused of the overall density of the site. I think it's 20.6. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, since I don't know what the acreage is for the single-family home site. And when I calculated it for the multifamily apartment, it was 79.8 dwelling units per acre. So I just wanted clarification on the density.
Density is looking at the site as a whole, so we're looking at units and
Yeah,
acreage of the whole site.
sorry, I just meant like the numbers. I know what density is.
Okay, that's 20.6 is what the applicant has provided at this point.
Okay. Does the architect happen to know what the density is for the single family homes? I don't know what the acreage is for. I guess I can do like a backward calculation and figure that out. I think the total site area is
Again, through the chair,
20.
we're still in the process of a technical review, so we can come back with that when we
Okay,
come back for official hearings. This is again just informational, and we'll take that comment and we can break it out for you so you understand how it's averaged.
okay. So I guess for this application, the city would look at it as a blended density. Is that correct?
Correct. It's the project
Okay.
area as a whole.
Okay. And then just for a clarifying question, for the affordable housing, the city does have the 15%. However, none of those would be in the single family homes, and all of those would be in that multifamily housing,
Yes.
correct?
That's what the applicant's proposing at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so historically speaking, would we allow for all of the affordable housing to just be on one of the structures and not have it equally distributed between the different plan types?
That the current proposal would follow an alternative means of compliance under the inclusionary housing ordinance. So it's an option for them to propose all of the units to be separate.
Okay,
And it's something that we'll take a closer look at as we review the application.
okay, thank you. And then I have, I think some of these were answered. For the applicant, I was curious about their projected build out and what that timeline would look like.
Good evening. That's always a great question, is what would build out look like? What we would anticipate is we do have a period of demolition. We have 3 5-story existing office buildings that are currently on site. If we look towards the other for sale communities that are proposed within Bishop Ranch and generally follow their timeline, it typically takes about 2 years from when a project is approved to when you start actually vertically constructing those homes. And then typically there's a 3 to 4 year delivery period, depending on absorption of those different housing types. So part of that will be informed on the project that's ultimately approved. And then a large piece of this is also informed by the residential market, the financial markets, general absorption.
Okay, so do you know like at what point, I mean, I know it's dependent on the future and you can't predict that, but best case scenario, at what point the affordable project would get constructed? Would that be before or after the single family homes?
So affordable would follow a different trajectory because they use different access to financing sources. Typically, they use access to tax credits, which are allocated by the state. There are a number of rounds that may happen on an annual basis, anywhere from 2 to 3. And so their timing is somewhat subject to financing within tax credits, but that's how they're able to develop. And then within tax credits, there are timing constraints for once tax credits are offered, when shovels need to get into the ground, and then ultimately when those projects are completed. Eden Housing, Dixie is here, and she may be able to provide some additional color on that.
Yeah, I think that would really shed some light.
It's such a delicate dance. Hi, I'm Dixie Bouse with Eden Housing. The dance between the timing of when buildings come down and the delivery of the affordable pad. What we anticipate happening is right now we have started working on the financing of our first project. We just got it approved at the first part of this month. If we read the tea leaves, you know, we're hopeful. We're hopeful we're under construction next year with a 24-month schedule. And what we want to make sure that we do is we don't deliver all the units to the market at the same time, because then we'll be tripping all over each other. But it looks like the trajectory will still be in the 2-year, 2-year, 2-year. So we'll be carefully planning as they're doing as the market rate part of the building is doing the demolition and the horizontal work. We'll be getting ready to go vertical because they'll be doing the horizontal, not land prep for our site, but really just taking down the buildings and building out kind of the outward infrastructure. Once our lot's created, that's really what we get to run with the wind. So that kind of the timeline and the trajectory could very well possibly be the same timeline that the single family homes and the for sale component goes vertical.
Once you start vertical construction, how long would you anticipate like the full build out taking?
This is really one building broken up into several pieces with a pretty simple podium. So I would say it probably is going to take anywhere from 18 to 22 months of construction.
Okay.
Best guess.
Thanks, Dixie.
Any other clarifying questions?
No more clarifying.
Okay, Commissioner Curtis?
So I just have a question about the parking, because I know that you're looking to get the state density bonus for the 135. Where else would people park? So is there parking along Executive Parkway where guests and or the overflow of the either housing and or multifamily housing would be? I'm just trying to see where it is on the map, because I thought there was some places, but I don't see anything here. And I don't think Executive Parkway is probably the best place for people to park their cars.
So within the residential community, there are surface stalls that are interspersed on the different roadways. Part of what Eden did on their prior community was they did provide a parking study, which substantiated a lower parking ratio for their community, given the demographic profile. And I can turn to Dixie to see if she can provide some additional context on that. But Eden and Steinberg Hart have studied parking specifically for affordable communities and have found that it has a lower parking demand than if you were to look at a market rate community. But I'll defer to Dixie for additional color on that.
Yeah, so on the parking demand, we would want to take a look at what the demand again would be for, excuse me, exclusively large family. The first project had a little bit of senior in it as well. And so we're looking at a way right now, studying a little bit of, we believe that where we've got it parked is optimal. We would like to see a little bit more, and so we're looking at how we can expand our podium to get some more parking within the podium itself. But as Stephanie did mention, affordable housing does have a much lower demand parking, mostly just out of economics for the families who live with us. Their level of affordability of having a number of cars, like non-affordable housing, isn't at the same level.
Great. And then I have one more question for the development itself. So it seems like almost half, if not more, including the multifamily, are going to be using one driveway in and out for the most part. I know there's two, but one of them is closer to the apartment, and then probably over half of the other houses. Well, the section 3 or whatever it was had its own little kind of driveway down at the very other end. Why was there no consideration of having something coming out onto Bishop Drive as another outlet for people to get in and out of this neighborhood?
Maybe we go back to the site plan.
That'd be great.
There it is. There was consideration at one point to have a third access off of Bishop Drive, but we figure will be a better and safer route if we just kept it as a loop internal street. As you notice, Bishop Drive kind of goes around a curve and straightens out, and people have a tendency to go a little faster on Bishop Drive than on Executive Parkway. The two entrance point into the project are the current alignment of where the driveway cuts occurs, and they will also align with the future development on the southern side of, I believe it's 2600 City Walk. So those will align with those developments as far as entrance point. So we figured two entrances would be sufficient for this development, having an internal loop street and kind of controlling traffic versus having people disperse out to Bishop Drive.
So then if I heard you correctly, there will be another neighborhood across the street using pretty much the same
Executive Parkway.
lanes. So having two brand new neighborhoods dump into Executive Parkway in the exact same spot.
Right.
On a small street that is going to be packed with 412 houses plus whatever the new.
Right. If you consider what's there today with 3 office buildings over, I don't know, a couple 100,000 square feet
Yeah.
of office space, plus what's across the street with the, I believe it's Chevron with their parking space, there are a few thousand cars. So I think the number of cars for employees versus residential housing is quite different. I believe housing is lower than the commercial.
Well, I'm just thinking that people go in and out more often of the residential area throughout the day as opposed to they go to work, they park.
Right.
Right. But then I'm just trying to think of like how packed that Executive Parkway is going to be with those units.
Well,
all in
here's
the same
the
place.
other
Plus City
option.
Walk. like down
Planning,
the
we've
street.
been discussing about smart growth, having blended residential and office buildings. So this is a great opportunity that City Council in the past, I think, designated this opportunity for housing and office buildings. So the idea is people hopefully won't be driving as much if they live here and also work here.
Well, we're ripping
Right.
down all the office buildings apparently because they're on this site. So
Right, so there is a transition going on after COVID. We all knows the number of people going back to the office has significantly been reduced. As it's even before COVID, it kind of started the transition, but the COVID kind of amplified the need for office buildings. And we're seeing that throughout the Bay Area, not just here in San Ramon. But if you look on the bright side, we are seeing an opportunity to provide housing closer to people where they work. So this is an opportunity to see if we could really put that theory that's been talked about for decades to actually make it work.
yeah, I'm just thinking of the traffic control and how many cars are going to be going into the same street from two different neighborhoods and how crowded and potential for accidents. So if there were just thinking of if there's a way to look at a different way to flow, It's just a thought.
Yeah,
So,
sure. I'm sure there's will be a traffic study done for both of these projects and the future project on Long Executive Parkway, especially with city villages already in place and what that will generate. And hopefully that report come out and be able to share with you guys.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Gentlemen, Commissioner Wallace, Commissioner Albert, clarifying questions, and then we'll take public comment.
So I have a couple of questions for staff first. I'm going to assume this project will go before the ARB for their comments at some point in the process. Is that true?
Yes, we don't have a date at the moment, but yes, it will
Okay.
go.
Oh, good. That means we don't have to think about colors too hard tonight because they will. Second question, and I know this is probably true, but the traffic engineer will take a look at traffic in the area and study the intersections and parking and all the things they normally do as part of this project. Is that
Yes, they will review the traffic studies.
great? Specifically around the questions that Commissioner Curtis was interested in around traffic flow and ins and outs and especially the intersection down over at Bishop and Executive. So those are the questions for staff. The questions for the applicant, starting, I think, with the single family. You made mention there were options or planning for ADUs in part of the project.
Correct.
Were those going to have separate standalone entrances, or were they going to be entered from inside the building? How's it?
Here's an example in Village 3. The Plan 3X kind of at the end of this courtyard has a opportunity to have a separate ADU with a separate door to the units. So yes, some of those will have the opportunity. Majority of the ADUs that we're offering will have a separate entrance. If we go to Village 1, what you see here, the primary bedroom on the downstairs could be an ADU. So it has, like on plans 3, we have a living space with a little kitchenette. It has a separate doorway. We have an opportunity where the rear yard is actually facing a street. We provide that as an enhanced rear elevation that looks like a front elevation, and will provide a front door off of that street. Whereas the primary unit, the front door entrance will be off the alleyway. So they'll share separate doorway entrances, and it will also appear differently along the street view. A good example of that is the street view on the upper left-hand corner. That's the back of the house, but on the ground floor, you'll see front doors and a porch, covered porch and decks that kind of face that street. So we're creating kind of 2 units in one house.
Got it. Got it. Is the vision for providing ADUs that it could be either a live only or it could also potentially be a live work kind of situation? Is that an option if somebody was interested? Is that-
Yeah, I think it's really up to the city and, whether it allows it as a conditional use permit, or is that something, I'm sure somebody could operate a home office, or it could be a rental
Yeah.
unit or extended family unit.
That makes sense. My next question was on the landscape. Well, maybe the very first slide, and it really is gonna be a landscape question, I think, or maybe it was the third slide. I think it was canopy connectivity.
Oh,
That slide, and I don't know if it's a site layout or something else. There's a little tiny P in the yellow that says park, future park. Is that the park along the green belt that you were describing for us, or is that something different there? It was kind of a little bit hard to see.
well, we have a couple of designated in kind of yellow as future parks, and then the ones in green dot are existing parks.
Gotcha. Okay, I see the existing park up at the corner of Camino and an Executive. and
Right,
then-
the one at Camino is the 2-acre one for City Village.
Okay,
And then our linear green belt has a little bit of kind of an extra large green space in the community. That would be
that's
community
what we're
park.
talking about with the future.
yes.
Okay, and then the question I had on the landscape plan was, and I think it was just a color thing that tricked me, probably. And it was one that's called canopy landscape plan or green belt. There's a blue blob there. And my question is that water or is that just a blue blob?
No, it's not. That's a tot lot area.
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, just want to make sure I wasn't thinking there's.
Looks like a nice swimming pool though. doesn't
It looks like it could have been a pond, a swimming
I like
pond
blue
or
yeah,
a fishing
that's
pond.
nice.
And I was thinking we have a great lake across the street, so why would we have one here? Good. Okay. And then there was one of the drawings under the architecture was, and I think you brought it up in the, I think the drawings towards the very end where there's a wall along Bishop Drive. I was on the multifamily renderings.
Mhm.
The question I had was, how tall is that wall? And just out of curiosity, is that
I think it's about 14 feet tall to the top, and then we would have additional guardrail above it, which could be a screening element, if not a
Okay.
solid wall.
and
So I can bring that up.
yeah, that slide, that would help. And
You're talking
That-
about the
that was the picture.
second
Yeah.
image on the left, correct?
so the walls, is it 14 feet? Could you expand on why there's a wall along that sidewalk there? Is that,
That's the parking garage, the exterior of the parking garage
okay,
on the west.
okay.
Okay,
And
I see it.
then,
It's the curved wall that you see on the plan to the west. And so for the units above, we are pulling them back from that edge.
got it, okay. And I'm sure the architects will discuss the landscaping in front of the walls. 'Cause
Yes,
it's a pretty tall-
absolutely.
It's a tall wall.
Yeah.
Seems very
Yes.
tall.
We are working on, with Zeki Van Dorn, we are working with them on introducing, vine screens to mitigate some of that expanse.
Okay, and then how far away from the sidewalk will that wall be?
We are, from this, I know from the walk, we are 35 feet
Okay.
setback.
Okay, so we're not walking right next to a wall.
Correct.
You know, beyond the- Okay. And then, you did answer the question, just make sure I understood it correctly. The two entrances into the project along Executive, those will align with the future entrances across the street at 2600, that neighborhood in the future? Okay, okay. I think that's it for my clarifying questions.
Okay. Commissioner Wallace, clarifying questions?
Thank you. I want to ask Ms. Hill to step up to the podium, please. First question I have is the single-family homes are for sale versus the multifamily are all rental apartments, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The staff report on page 10 has the following statement, quote, "The project intends to comply with the city's inclusionary housing ordinance requirements through a land dedication of an approximate 2.2 acre portion of the project site for the development of the affordable multifamily building, period, close quote." Do you agree with that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, I don't recall there ever being a project in San Ramon where an affordable housing requirement was met through a land dedication. Normally, a land dedication involves a transfer of title of a piece of property from one entity to another. Is that what you're visualizing for this multifamily building?
Yes, the concept is that the land would be transferred to Eden Housing as part of their development for that site.
Okay, so basically there'd be two different parcels, call them parcel A for the multifamily building and parcel B for the single-family homes?
In general concept, yes.
All right. Now, we've been told by staff that if a developer uses the state density bonus law for various reasons, the units that trigger the state density bonus law have to be built on site. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with respect to the land dedication, I'm guessing that as between the applicant, which is Alexander Properties, and the nonprofit developer, which is our friend Eden Housing, that there are no agreements for Alexander Properties to participate in the construction of the multifamily building, correct?
Currently, there are no agreements.
Okay. Is there any anticipation that will be the case?
Is the question that Alexander Properties would be part of the development entity for the affordable housing?
That Alexander Properties will be part of the construction of the multifamily building?
Can you be more specific about what you mean by construction?
Sure. Will Alexander Properties hire the contractors?
No.
Will Alexander Properties provide financing for the building?
So respectfully, that it seems that this falls outside of the purview of this evening's discussion about the development. Ultimately, what's being proposed is that there would be a land dedication between Alexander Properties and Eden Housing to help facilitate the affordable housing development.
Okay. Let me ask this question. If for some reason Eden Housing can't follow through on building the multifamily building, is Alexander Properties willing to step up and complete it?
Respectfully, this falls outside of the purview of this evening's meeting.
I'm sorry?
Respectfully, this falls outside of the purview of providing concept comments on the development that's currently ahead of you.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Are you planning to proceed under Section D of the inclusionary housing ordinance, which is the land dedication provision?
The current proposal is that the affordable housing obligation would be met through land dedication, which is an alternate compliance mechanism within the city's inclusionary housing program.
Right, which is, in case you don't know, that's Section D of that area. That is discretionary with the city, is it not?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
It's a discretionary approval.
Right, and then the city has to decide whether the proposal before it to allow affordable housing that's required to be built on that dedicated site is in the best interest of the city.
Yes, that's correct. It's at the discretion of the city.
Okay. Now, Commissioner Avila had asked a question about concurrent development. Our city inclusionary ordinance requires that market rate and affordable units be developed concurrently. Is Alexander Properties willing to do that?
Respectfully, the land dedication does not include a concurrency clause.
I'm sorry, land. Okay, it is in part of the inclusionary housing ordinance in general. Is it not?
Respectfully, this discussion about affordable housing and what may or may not be discussed and agreed to with the development and city staff falls outside of the purview of this evening's meeting. This evening's meeting is to receive feedback on what's currently being proposed, which is the 412 home community, which is a blend of single-family homes and a standalone affordable community. What's currently being discussed is business terms as it relates to an alternate affordable housing program, which is currently being proposed within the application materials. We've not received feedback from city staff as it relates to our proposal, the completeness of it, or the acceptance of what we've suggested within our application materials.
Okay, well, obviously I can't force you to answer the question, but it seems to me that these are questions that will come up if and when you decide to proceed with this application. Let me ask you a question about the affordable building itself. As I understand it, there's 157 units proposed, and I think of those 157, one would be used for the manager's unit.
Yes, that's correct.
So there'd be 156 affordable units because the manager's unit can be market rate.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Now, the affordable apartment building itself has its own affordable unit requirement, does it not?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's required to do 15% of the units for affordable renters, correct?
Yes.
Now, that leaves, according to my math, 131 affordable units that are available that aren't used by the multifamily building itself. Now, in general terms, is the idea that the obligation of Alexander Properties to produce affordable units that are related to the 255 for sale units will be satisfied either in full or in part by some of the affordable units in the multifamily building?
The intention is that the 412 homes which are currently being developed within Canopy will comply with the 15% on-site affordability requirement through the city's inclusionary housing policy. Of the 412 approximate units, you're looking at approximately, if I'm doing the math correctly, 60 affordable units that are required within Canopy. Eden's proposal currently includes 156 affordable homes. 156 is larger than the 62 based off of my off-the-cuff math, which would suggest that this project complies with the city's 15% on-site affordability requirement.
So my question is, of the units that are in this development, a number of them are the for sale homes, which have an affordable unit requirement. Is some of the obligation to produce affordable units in the single-family homes in your proposal going to be met by some of the rental units in the multifamily building?
The proposal would be that Eden's affordable community meets the affordable obligations for the Canopy neighborhood.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. And I think I had questions, but I was so wrapped into the discussion, I simply cannot come up with them. So we will move to public comment. Do we have any we'd like to open public comment on this item. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Pamela Wallace.
Okay, very good.
Hi, I'm Pam Wallace, and thank you, Commissioner Wallace, for your questions, which were really eye-opening for me. I first was very excited to see that we have this 15% affordable housing coming. I was under the impression they were going to be condos. I guess I didn't read the package yet, and that they would be available for sale, because I'm still in the mode of hoping that one day, my children coming back from college will be able to purchase here in San Ramon as I did. But the market rate is just so difficult for them to do that. I'm still looking forward to the opportunity for them to have a purchase opportunity, as I'm seeing in Santa Clara and Maryville, a lot of other communities that are really doing a lot more to help create affordable housing to purchase, not just to rent. And I also appreciate your line of questioning, Commissioner Avila, regarding how this community or the affordable units are segmented from the rest of the community instead of being integrated in the larger community. And then my other question was about the parking as well. I guess I was thinking, especially hearing the discussion about the ADUs, that they understand the demographics, the changing demographics of San Ramon, and the fact that we have multi-generational households. And in that, you have not two-car families. The assumption used to be 1 or 2 cars per family. You've got the grandmother, the parents, and then the children all in the same household. So you've got 3 to 4 cars. So I'm hoping that people are aware of the demographic as they're making these assumptions and planning and making assumptions for the traffic studies. And that's my last question. Oh, but first, regarding the parking, yes. So I don't understand how that math is going to work, because you've got a deficit of almost 100 parking spaces. So 232 units, 135 parking spaces are being proposed instead of the required 232 parking units. So that's 97 less parking spaces. I don't understand why we would allow that proposal to be acceptable. To me, it's just going to be another parking problem. And then the other thing about traffic studies, I was at the last architectural committee meeting. I'm always asking to see the traffic studies, because again, the assumptions about, the conversion even out of Chevron, I'm wondering if those assumptions are correct. They were thinking, 8,000 employees, and the traffic would be around that. I think that the assumptions should be closer to, 3 to 4 cars per family, and then think about what the traffic impact is, not just on each unit as it comes, each development, but I hope I guess the commission and the staff people are looking at the impact of all of these combined impacts from all these different developments. For some reason, I think you may be looking at each development in isolation and maybe not in whole, but I hope that that's being looked at in whole with regard to all of the new development coming, all these different developments, the impact as a whole is my key. Thank you.
Thank you.
Johannes Tillen.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good to be in front of you. Originally, I was gonna give a comment and an opinion, but after listening to Commissioner Curtis's question, it really made me think. Let me start with my first opinion is for someone, a layman, I know it wouldn't make sense for you, but someone like me who never knows how to read an architecture, it would have been nice to see some kind of a 3D that for simple people who want to get involved and give it to you, because the landscaping looks beautiful, but I couldn't make a head or a tail out of it. What does it look like? But for you, I'm sure you would maybe in the future something to consider. The comment Commissioner Curtis made regarding the traffic, and I want to address the gentleman's how he thought maybe if I misunderstood him, I apologize immediately. And this is regarding part of the traffic that's being considered is that most people would not be going to the office. No, I do not agree with that. I have no doubt in the coming future, a lot of people are going back to the office. Companies like JP Morgan, Amazon, and everyone else is forcing people to come back to the office. The only reason that we have a resistance is because the economy is doing well and companies cannot afford to lose employees. But if the economy tanks, when employers start to lay off people are going to be competitive for jobs, and they're going to start taking jobs like Chevron, the company that was right in our backyard. If I'm correct, they're about to lay off 30% of their employees, which is huge. So please take that into consideration. And if I misunderstood you, I apologize, sir. The most important thing that I came here is I respect Ms. Hill's opinion that today's is not about the affordability. I don't expect opinion or comments or questions. Since I'm here, I might as well speak about it. And that is the affordability of housing is something that's very sensitive to me because I grew up in a poor country, grew up in a poor neighborhood, and I know what it's like to be a poor, grew up homeless person. You know, to me, my biggest, and I've commented this to the council, on and off, Commissioner Wallace, I know I've spoken to you about it, is that I have no problem building a whole building for affordable. But to me, when I hear that is, I don't want to use the word Section 8, but that's what comes to mind to me. It really does, because it's sensitive to me. What I don't want to, you don't want to have beautiful buildings all around you, gorgeous landscaping, and then you have one that's just affordable, which is for the poor people technically. I hope you take that into consideration. How is you going to mitigate the messaging of that one? I'm very pro of having housing for teachers, fire people, police, and things like that. So please think of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Max Zhang.
Hi, and good evening, commissioners, citizens, applicants, and staff. My name is Max Zhang, and I've lived in Windermere Ranch since 2007. I want to make it clear that I am speaking in favor of this project because I want to see more housing in the Bay Area, even if it is in my own backyard, because we have possibly the most unaffordable housing in the entire country, and there is no way out of that problem besides building more homes for people who both grew up in the Bay Area, like me, and want to stay here, and for future residents who want to live here too. At the same time, I think this project could be a lot better. And in saying that, I do not want to imply that the applicants have not already put an immense amount of work into this application and that they aren't trying to develop a good project that delivers homes people both want and need. I'm not insinuating that Sunset hasn't poured their vision for Bishop Ranch into this project, because they have, that Eden isn't doing their best to fulfill their wonderful mission of providing affordable homes for people, that Steinberg Hart and the other architects, landscape architects, and engineers working on this project haven't done their best to design nice homes, streets, and parks for this development. I'm only saying that this project could be better. If we could pretend for a moment that zoning and development standards didn't exist, that staff had unlimited resources to work with the applicants on this project, that neighbors want to see this project succeed as much as the applicants did, is this really the best that we could do? Is there a real reason we can't build dense, intimate, grid-based, naturally mixed-use street blocks you see in our most beloved neighborhoods like downtown Livermore, Pleasanton, Danville, and Walnut Creek? Why can't we have a cafe on the corner in this project, a flexible mix of big and medium and small homes, streets that connect to City Village and to the future development, whatever it will be at Toyota, a decent bus stop, along with beautiful parks and streetscape? Is there a reason we can't have this? Because this development shares a lot of resemblance with my own neighborhood in Windermere Ranch, which is pleasant and clean, but also sterile, not affordable, has a walk score of 2 out of 100 on Zillow. Is this really what we want for Bishop Ranch? I know many of you in this room have studied urban planning and design, read Jane Jacobs and the pattern language and good city form, and know the tenets of new urbanism, have studied and visited beautiful cities and neighborhoods elsewhere in the Bay Area, in California, and the rest of the country, and in other parts of the world, like in Europe or Asia. Neighborhoods like that are not easy to design. They're not easy to get financed. Heck, I think they might not even be legal under our current general plan. But they are what we need and deserve. And so I just want to say that, for this project, we need more homes, but we also need good neighborhoods. I think everyone here, applicants, staff, citizens, neighborhoods, future residents, can get what they want and need out of this project if we just put the work into it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chirag Katrani.
So excellent input from all the Commissioner Wallace and all the team. I want to remind about the City Walk Master Plan. City Walk Master Plan was made with the design of having much more walkability here. With designing this particular, approving this kind of project, we are actually killing the walkability as well as a neighborhood where we can have cafe and everything together. Already we changed the DMU zoning to ratio from FAR ratio from 1.25 to 0.5, enabling this density bonus transfer. I think that was already wrong, and that's why I already had a referendum, but I fell short of number of timing because they were short of time. But I believe we should still stick to our City Walk Master Plan and not approve this project. Thank you.
I have no other speaker cards and I did not receive any written communication for this item.
Okay, so we are closed on the public comment on this particular item. And now we are providing feedback to the applicant and staff on the project. I'm going to go ahead and leap in here since I was sidetracked before. So number one, I'm really pleased to see that we have two-story housing in this development. And as looking at the floor plan, the comment that I had was that it looks like if you use the first floor bedroom as the owner's suite, if you are limited in your mobility, that you could make it seem like a single-story house. The only exception is the laundry room is upstairs. So, with a minor modification of having capacity to have a laundry room on the first floor would make that really attractive to people who have mobility issues, who going up and down stairs is not that comfortable. And even if it's one of those stackable ones, I think maybe I would offer that as a constructive comment, because I really like how the first floors are pretty close to being, elderly friendly. I also had the question about will we be allowing parking on Executive and Bishop at some point? I think right now it currently is not, but that might be something that comes later. So that's a comment to staff. And then the other question that came up to me was, when you are talking about the internal landscaping and the amenities, who's responsible for maintaining that? And I suspect that will be an HOA. So it's always something that raises some concern on my part for that. So those are quickly some of my feedback on it. People have a lot more details, but they've also mentioned some of the similar kinds of things. So I just wanted to have an opportunity to say before I forgot. Okay, other commissioners, go ahead. Who would like to go next? This is providing feedback to staff
All
and
right.
applicant.
Comes under the definition of feedback. The application that's been presented to us is for the entirety of BR8. The applicant has made it clear that they're looking at this proposal as for the entire property. What they're proposing to do, in my view, does not meet the requirements or affordable housing ordinance. It does not comply with section D4 179 of the ordinance, which allows for alternatives to building on site. Well, the reason I say this is because the applicant admitted that all the affordable units that trigger the state density bonus law have to be built on site. The site they're talking about, as I understand it, is the 29 acres that comprises BR8. I think it's 29, and they're setting aside 2 for the multifamily building. But I could be wrong on that because the print was a little hard to read even with a magnifying glass. The problem I have with their proposal is this. The applicant said that the standards of the inclusionary housing ordinance do not apply if the land dedication route is picked. That is completely contrary to what our inclusionary housing ordinance says. Section C4-179 of the inclusionary housing ordinance is the section that deals with alternatives to construction of new affordable units on site. The very first paragraph in that section states as follows, quote, any affordable units provided by an applicant pursuant to one of the following alternatives shall comply with the standards contained in section C4-178 and shall be roughly equivalent in value to the inclusionary housing requirement contained in C4-177. So the other portions of the inclusionary housing ordinance do apply to this particular method of complying with the affordable housing. One of the sections in question in those 2 sections states that if you're building affordable units, those units must be, quote, comparable to the market rate units in terms of unit type, number of bedrooms per unit, quality of exterior appearance, and overall quality of construction. Affordable unit sizes shall be generally representative of the unit sizes within the market rate portion of residential projects. The affordable unit shall be dispersed throughout the entire residential project. Now, the reason I brought up that the applicant has looked at BR8 as the entirety of the 29 acres or so is that what they have designed as the residential project. It seems to me that our inclusionary housing ordinance is clear that the affordable units have to be dispersed throughout the entire project, and that includes the entire 29 acres, and that includes the single-family homes. As our Supreme Court has pointed out, one of the purposes of an inclusionary housing ordinance is to disperse the obligation of affordable units throughout a development and not concentrated in one area. In my view, putting the entirety of the alleged affordable units on a 2-acre site is the antithesis of what we're looking for in our inclusionary housing ordinance. Now, the second area that I have a problem with what is proposed here is the allocation of the affordable units in regards of this plan. Now, Sunset has in other situations stated that the overall plan is to move all the affordable units from all its projects onto specific affordable housing sites, one of which is the Eden Housing on Camino Ramon. The second would be on BR8. These are already in documents that Sunset has provided to us. Our inclusionary housing ordinance says that affordable units must be equivalent to the market rate units. I don't see how any reasonable person can sit there and say that a 800 square foot, one bedroom rental apartment is the functional equivalent of a 2,200 square foot for sale, 4 bedroom, 3 bath house. They are just two different types of units. If we were proposed under the idea that it is overriding for us to provide rental affordable units for people in the very low and low income and moderate income categories, to me, giving a credit of 1 unit for 1 for sale unit is markedly improper. If the applicant wanted to dispose of the entire affordable housing component on this property, I think the appropriate level of allocation would be 2 or 3 rental units for every 1 for sale unit that would otherwise have to be built. I think that recognizes the difference in the two types of units, but it also gives the city, if it thinks that's important, additional affordable units in the rental category. The third point I wanted to address was parking. Now, again, if you look at Sunset's application, they are looking at parking in terms of what they're entitled to as the entire project. They said that they are entitled to a state density bonus for parking because 5% of the total units being provided are set aside for very low income people. Now, 5% of that 412 is the 22 units they're talking about. So Sunset had qualified for the minimal requirements of the density bonus law. The question is, how does that apply to the parking requirements? Well, our state density bonus law doesn't talk about parking requirements in terms of buildings. It talks about them in terms of the project as a whole. In this case, the project as a whole is the entire 412 units on that 27 or 29 acres. Now, what the state density bonus law does tell cities like us is that if a developer comes in and qualifies for a state density bonus because of the number of very low income units it's providing, regardless of what the city otherwise requires in terms of parking requirements, the most the city can charge that developer with is set forth in section 65915P1 of the state density bonus law. And I'm saying that because it's already in the applicant's papers, so I'm not saying something that it doesn't know already. P1 is a state mandated floor on which the developer can force the city not to go beyond in terms of requiring more units. It's done on the basis of how big the units are. It is clear, and I'm sure the applicant will not deny this, that given the requirements even of the multifamily building, that building does not meet the requirements in P1. As I calculated, they would need to provide 197 parking spots to fulfill their requirements under the government code section. Now, it has been argued that because our city density bonus law refers to the state density bonus law, that an applicant, in addition to getting what is essentially a waiver of city standards through the state density bonus law restrictions, can use another waiver to reduce the state mandated level even farther. I don't agree with that. The provision that's been mentioned as allowing that is section B4 of our density bonus law, city density bonus law, section D79, which states the applicant may request and the city shall grant a reduction in parking requirements in accordance with California Government Code section 65915P. In my view, all that the city density bonus law does is say we adopt the restrictions that are in P1. If that's the case, which is the only fair reading, in my opinion, of that code section, then the applicant is required to provide the 197 parking spots. Now, it is clear that under the state density bonus law, and I think also under the city density bonus law, that the city can agree to a lower figure. The question is whether the city has to agree to a figure that is below the state requirements. I don't believe that's the case. And I think that what is an appropriate level of parking for the multifamily building should be discussed with the applicant and provide meaningful examples of similar projects that it believes shows that less than one parking space is necessary for a building that contains not only one bedroom, but 2 and 3 bedroom units as well. I think that in order to do that, the applicant would be wise to choose affordable housing projects in areas similar to San Ramon and the area we're in, which is in the suburbs, and not look at projects that are in downtown areas, highly developed areas or dense areas, because they are in no way similar to BR8. Those are my, one last thing. This came up at Eden Housing's proposal on Camino Ramon. And as was pointed out in that regard, Eden was in a different area because it wasn't simply 5% of the units that were being saved for very low-income people, but 100% of the project was affordable, and that put them into a totally different category. That is not true here because, as I've said, the applicant is looking at this project as an entire one type of project, which is just has for sale as well as rental property, but it's one project. It is not 2 different projects, which would be the affordable multifamily housing and the for sale single family units. So that's why the other Eden housing project, it seems to me, is not a reasonable precedent for what we have here. Now, the purpose of this meeting, as we've been told, is to provide feedback to the applicant and staff. I have given you my feedback.
All right. Commissioner Alpert?
Okay, so my feedback, and I think you probably could have guessed, when it gets to the ARB, just from a building architecture, and the one comment we hear, or I hear quite a bit about the next door project is it feels washed out, and that when the ARB gets a hold of this, I suspect they're going to talk about colors and to think about it. City Village is the project that seems to get a lot of feedback that people are not happy with colors. I think the Eden on Camino Ramon turned out extremely nice, and I want to, I think the combination of colors there. As it relates to traffic, I am concerned, as Commissioner Curtis mentioned, about 2 entrances and exits only on Executive, not so much Executive, because I think even if 2,600 or 4,001 Executive fill up, I think the timing of ins and outs is going to be analyzed successfully by the traffic engineer. I'm actually concerned about the intersection of Executive and Bishop because, as was mentioned earlier, there is a blind curve and people tend to go very fast along Bishop Drive. And I think I'd like the traffic engineer to really take a close look at that intersection with ins and outs on that street. It is only a stop sign only on Executive, and Bishop Drive is the right of way. So I am concerned about that. The walking district compliance, I appreciate the sidewalk along Bishop being as wise as it is. I am a little bit concerned with the importance of Executive in the sidewalk. There's, and I think I understand there's the large setback, but most of that's actually the C3 retention basin. But to take a closer look at the sidewalk along Executive, because that is where people are going to walk to either the bus stop or walk to the park or walk to the Iron Horse Trail. And I think right now it's set for 5 or 6 feet. So when that comes along, I think that the wall along Bishop Drive feels really massive and really big. And I think I understand from the architect why it is needed there. But I think anything we can do to soften that wall so it doesn't feel like it's a cavern along Bishop Drive, that would be very helpful. And I think that is it for my suggestions to staff, other than the normal things that I know they'll take a look at as part of the technical review process.
Mr. Curtis?
No, at this time, I have no other things to add. I mean, I think the traffic study is definitely something that needs to be done. I do think that we keep underestimating how many people are going to go back to work and how many people are going to be driving. I mean, the original plan for City Walk was that people could live, work, and shop where they are, but we're losing a lot of the people that are working in that area and getting more people that are driving in this area. So I do think that's going to be an important piece for us to think about, especially on the Bishop and Executive Corner, and just in general, the executive. I do think that at a certain point, we do need to think about parking and addressing in that entire area, because we keep on saying we're having waivers for parking for all the sites that we're continuing to build. And eventually we're going to run out of places for people to go down the road. So I do think that's important for us to think about. Do we have the right amount of parking for the multifamily home area? Is there places for people to park, you know, along the streetways, or is there somewhere that inside of the community itself where people can park? Because I don't think people are going to be able to effectively park on Executive Parkway. And I can see that being the first place people start thinking of going to, or they're going to start going across the street to 2600 before that's built out. So I do think that's something that needs to be considered at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Avila?
Yeah, I have quite a number of comments, and I'll start first with a single family. Just looking at the site plan, it seems more so that that Central Park area that has that meandering walkway, it's great, I love it, but it's fragmented by streets. I think it would be really cool to have a large central park that doesn't have streets going through it. I think that would be super beneficial and make this feel more like a neighborhood than it is to catering toward cars. So that was a big thing that I could see like being implemented and being like well received by the community and so forth, especially because this Bishop Ranch 8 project really reflects what we've seen with City Village. It's kind of a Control C, Control V situation of just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste of just these alley loaded projects, and not too much of that like common open space that we really want to feel the community drive toward. I walked along City Village, and as I was driving my car in City Village, one of the things that I noticed was that there were no red curbs that were like adjacent to the alley. So it was a little bit scary because I saw kids like biking really quickly, and they were just going at it, like zooming by. And then I just happened to be like passing, and luckily there wasn't a car there, so I could see that they were going by. But I thought if there was a car parked right adjacent within that vision triangle, that wouldn't be great. So just from a safety perspective as well, like I think red curbs would be essential for those sight distance triangles, especially along these like alley loaded projects where we have a lot of entrances and a lot of like exits from cars and so forth. The other thing was I didn't see very many like crosswalks. I think one of the things that was mentioned in the project description was, you know, this walkable community, but I don't know how, like what the flow looks like. It would be nice to have like a diagram to see the overall connectivity and like the pedestrian walkways and so forth. I didn't see any of that, at least in the phase that's being built out at City Village. So how could someone go ahead and access the park if they're trying to get to the park in a safe means? they'd have to go ahead and cater to cars. And at least with the crosswalk and certain elements that can be implemented, we can slow traffic down, especially since there's a street, that's a pretty long straight run. So it would be nice to have some sort of like traffic elements there that could at least curb, the speed limit through different means. Another thing I have was, this was mentioned by one of the commissioners, was about the color scheme. I thought that it was pretty dark in nature and pretty heavy. I thought there were a lot of browns, all sorts of browns, 10 shades of browns. And I thought there would be like a potential for more fresher, vibrant colors instead of having a community feel pretty dark. I tend to see a lot of the new projects that are getting built be browns and tans, and it's kind of overplayed, in my opinion. And I think that in respect to the multifamily, I think you guys did a great job in the color scheme of it's uplifting, especially with the breezeways and so forth. It gives like a visual interest. But with the single family homes, it's just pretty dull. The other thing is that when you go to City Village and along Norris Canyon Road, there's not much landscaping there. And the landscaping that is there is like a foot shrub, and you have 3-story straight up buildings. So it just seems pretty drab, in my opinion. And I think that this has done a way better job in terms of landscaping along the borders. However, in looking at the trees that are in the alley loaded that are front facing, and just the elevations, you can tell that the trees that are provided are pretty decorative. They're like more accent type trees. So they look pretty out of proportion compared to like the 3-story massing. So it would be nice to just explore with a landscape architect what can be done there to provide more of a fit. Like this tree is more fitting for this 3-story box-like structure. The commissioners also brought up the queuing and the traffic. And I thought that was interesting too, just because you have the one exit out of the multifamily site. And I think it would only allow for maybe like 3 to 4 cars to be queued at that stop sign. But then at the same time, you have the single family homes that are also wanting to get out of there. So there's not a lot of, the length of queuing is going to be kind of awkward, since you're going to have, some at a stop and trying to get out of, 2 exits. So I think the LOS analysis will go and further look into that. And as one of the commissioners mentioned, that making a left onto Bishop off of Executive Parkway is a little bit sketchy. There's been a number of times where I've made a left and looked both ways. I'm a pretty cautious driver. And then someone's right behind me and I'm like, whoa, like I didn't see that person there, but they were just zooming by. Another comment that I have is just, it's the copy paste of the alley loaded project. And it would be really nice to have some sort of like paseos in between the single family project and like have that play into the overall connected, like the walkable nature of the community and so forth. I think there could be ample room for that, and it doesn't have to be too big in nature, but I think it would kind of encourage a more of a walkable environment. Another thing was for the design comments, just overall, like exploring different architectural elements and materials to break up the massing and promote a more pedestrian sense of scale. Sometimes I saw like, it could be things for like instance using like hip roofs instead of gable roofs that appear pretty stark. The other thing was that I did appreciate the first floor being on some of the plan types just for that aging in place component, as well as the optional JADU as well. I saw that some of the elevations were lacking windows, and I'm not sure why that is. Some of the left or right elevations were just completely lacking windows. So I would like to see just windows throughout a home. I think it looks a little bit unsophisticated when there's no windows on a side of a home when it's 3 stories. It looks pretty stark. The other thing was, yeah, just overall working with ARB because some of the elevations just look a little monotonous. In terms of the multifamily, some of the feedback that I have was I like the scale, the massing, and the breezeways. I thought those were all very visually appealing. One of the things that I looked at deeper was into the motorcycle and bicycle parking. And I think those numbers were based off the state density bonus law. So in reality, there were 3 proposed like motorcycle stalls, when in reality, like according to like the required, if they were not to use the state density bonus law and just what was required straight from the development standards, that was 5. So rounding to 5 instead of the 3 that were proposed. For the bicycle parking, on the ground floor, I saw that there was a bicycle room. There were 14 instead of the 24 stalls. And I think since we're already cutting it short with allowing the minimum number of parking for that multifamily site, I think it's safe to assume that there's probably going to be more than 14 people that need bike storage within 150 units. I think that's a pretty safe bet that most people will have a bike, especially with proximity to the Iron Horse Trail and how that's a big selling point to the community. According to the objective design standards for multifamily, there's like a certain number of community amenities that have to be provided that are established through the number of dwelling units. In this case, since we have 157 units, that would put this at needing to provide a minimum of 3 community amenities. And there's a list for those approved amenities. And keeping in mind that 1 would be outdoor and 1 would be indoor. So I'm kind of curious. I really liked the courtyard and I liked how that spilled into, you know, the landscaping for the offsite and so forth, and also the single family. So probably the tot lot would be one of those outdoor ones. And then the indoor, it looks like there's an indoor play area on one of the floors that I saw. And then I was also concerned, like I lived in an apartment building that was pretty similar to this in the past, and I had a dog. And anytime that I had to take my dog outside, there was a courtyard, but it was not on the ground floor. And in looking at the landscaping plans, it seems like there's barriers and so forth. So it was kind of a struggle to go somewhere and take her out to go potty. And sometimes it wasn't, I guess the area that I lived in wasn't so safe, so it was a little scary. But I guess when related to the project itself, it would be nice if there could be some sort of like dog park amenity, especially because like the single family homes, they have, you know, an outdoor area where they can have their pets if they do choose to have any. But when you're living in an apartment, you don't have that. And so having access to an actual like dog amenity would be really nice. Especially as we like look in the modern day and age where a lot of people aren't having kids anymore and they're having pets as children now. One of the other things that I have is, as I was looking at the landscaping, I thought it was super neat that there were like a lot of incorporation of natural materials like wood and the decorative paving and so forth. And then I noticed that the furniture that was selected was not very ergonomical. So I would like to see like more use of, and this is just me kind of just getting into the details here, like more ergonomical furniture just because it looked pretty uncomfortable to sit at. And with the reality of more people working from home, I think it's more so that if you guys could just look a little bit deeper into like creating like small sheltered spaces or like allowing for like a place for people to have more focused work, especially in the outdoor areas. I think it's a little bit it's a little challenging to be indoors all the time when you work from home and you kind of want to get outdoors and then have a little bit of a break. So if we could provide for elements that would make that more appropriate, like outlets and charging stations, just as a possibility. But overall, that was all that I had. The only other comment that I had was, I know that there's a bus that goes along Bishop Ranch 8 right now. I don't know what that would look like in the future and how that would function, and whether or not a bus stop would be warranted like along this way, especially just because with the connectivity of things, I'm not sure if a bus stop would be somewhere along Bishop or Executive, just because we're still going to have offices and so forth. So it'd be nice to get people to work. And that was all. Thank you.
Any last comments before we move on? Okay, is it sufficient, staff and applicant? All right, well, thank you very much. We have provided feedback to applicant and staff on the proposed project. So thank you very much. Appreciate your efforts and hope we take our comments to heart. Thank you. Okay, we will move on with item 11.2, Annabelle, Bishop Ranch 12, Residential Development Study Session. And let me just remind everyone that as with item 11.1, this is a study session item for us to provide initial feedback on the project to staff and the applicant. The applications have not been deemed complete, and as such, no detailed analysis has been completed, and the project may be amended to address completeness and review comments. Staff will receive our comments and continue to review the application for completeness. And we have Mr. Huss. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Kuznick and Commissioners. This evening, we have another study session for the Annabelle at Bishop Ranch 12 residential development project located at 2 Annabelle Lane. The project site is approximately 3.57 acres within the downtown mixed-use North General Plan and zoning designation. The project proposes to demolish the existing office building on site and construct 64 multifamily townhome condominium units and 9 accessory dwelling units. Formal applications were submitted on June 3rd and are still under review. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Good evening, Chair Kuznick and Planning Commissioners. I'm back. On behalf of Sunset Development, I'm Stephanie Hill. We appreciate the opportunity to provide an overview of our Annabelle redevelopment. As we've discussed in previous meetings, the natural life cycle of office buildings, coupled with evolving market conditions and tenant demand, requires property owners to periodically reevaluate how sites are used and where reinvestment makes sense. Bishop Ranch 12 was the first office development Sunset constructed and laid the groundwork for the broader office campus that followed. Today, we are proposing to transition a portion of this site into residential use. The existing building at 1 Annabelle Lane, which is currently home to the Doris Eaton School, will remain. The 2 Annabelle Lane portion will be redeveloped into a 64-home residential community, offering entry-level for-sale homes within Bishop Ranch. While this site is located outside of the downtown core and walking district, connections will improve accessibility. A new sidewalk is proposed along Annabelle Lane to the Norris Canyon and Bishop Drive intersection, providing access to the Iron Horse Trail and surrounding neighborhoods. In support of the city's long-term vision, our site plan includes a road along the eastern edge to allow for a future roadway connection from Annabelle Lane to Crow Canyon Place. 2 transit lines will serve the community, the 95X to Walnut Creek Park, and the 35, which connects to the San Ramon Transit Center, Lakeside, City Center, and Central Park for folks who don't want to take a much longer walk through the walking district. Consistent with the broader Bishop Ranch vision, this community supports a diversity of housing types, including market rate and affordable options. The 64 alley-loaded homes are arranged around landscaped paseos with front doors oriented toward shared walkways to encourage interaction and community. 9 homes include the option for an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, to support multi-generational living and/or opportunities for rental income. In response to feedback from both the Planning Commission and the Architectural Review Board on other recent communities, we've designed a different architecture. Generally, all of the buildings have the same architecture with a range of 5 to 9 homes per building. We've moved away from prominent gable forms, shifting to flatter roof lines with integrated vertical elements to emphasize individual homes. Varying front door colors enhance visual interest at the pedestrian level. Apparently, we've kept to the brown scheme, so we'll take a look at that, Commissioner Avia. Stormwater is managed through 2 bioretention areas. Adjacent to the first bioretention area is a trellised seating area. And the second is along the Annabelle Lane entry with accent plantings further along the Annabelle Lane extension. Homes include extended patios with space for tables and chairs, creating opportunities for informal gatherings and an opportunity to meet your neighbors. The internal walkways offer safe areas for kids and pets, separate from vehicle traffic. This is a much smaller site and so a much shorter presentation than what we had for Canopy. To close, I'd like to summarize how this project aligns with the city's DMU North zoning. Bishop Ranch 12 is not designated as a housing opportunity site and is required to be mixed use. Although the combination of 1 Annabelle, which is commercial, and 2 Annabelle, which is residential, meets the horizontal mixed use threshold, the blended project would not meet the minimum density requirement of 20 units per net acre. As such, 2 Annabelle Lane is a separate standalone residential development application. The plan includes 15% on-site affordable housing with 5% reserved for very low-income households, qualifying it for the state density bonus law, including related concessions, incentives, and waivers. Specifically, we are requesting a concession of the commercial requirement for 2 Annabelle. We have also requested waivers for garage dimensions and setbacks and a parking reduction allowed under state density bonus. We appreciate your time and consideration and are happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm also joined tonight by the design team, so they can answer any of the more technical questions. Thank you.
As we usually do, are there clarifying questions first before we do open or public comment?
You're all looking at me. Okay, I just had a few, mercifully few. Real exciting questions, by the way. In going through your plans, one of the waivers you want is, I believe, the depth of the garage in certain units
Yes, that's correct.
to reduce it from 22 to 20 feet.
Yes,
And those are in units that are basically programmed for the ADUs.
Is that correct, Jeff? Is it only for the ADUs or throughout? It's throughout.
Really? Okay. The second thing on sheet TM1, there is a legend adjacent to Highway 680, which reads, quote, "Abutters rights relinquished by deed to state of California." And the hash mark that refers to that particular legend runs the entire width of the property along 680. What does that mean?
Good evening, Jeff Potts, SDG Architects. The abutters rights, simply the hashed line really just indicates where it is. All that means is you're not entitled to any access.
Any
So-
access to?
To the parcel adjacent, which is the freeway.
Oh, okay. It's
So
basically
the
some.
property's not entitled to access on that side.
Oh, okay. So they basically, there's an invisible wall that keeps somebody from walking onto the freeway?
Or putting a road.
Got it.
out onto
Okay.
the freeway.
All right. Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Want to go? All right, going to the left. Speak
Yeah,
up.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
My first one is the parcel line. I just kind of want to understand where it ends versus where it begins. If you look at the Annabelle site plan, you'll have the aerial imagery on the left and the site plan on the right. So part of that parking, if I'm looking at this correctly, will go away. Is that correct?
That's correct. So roughly, if you look at buildings 1 and 2, those are in the parking lot. And then the kind of jog on the, I guess, the northern portion, not geographically, but page-wise, essentially follows the edge of the existing 2 Annabelle Lane. So the courtyard between the Doris Eaton School and 2 Annabelle Lane remains, and then it jogs into the parking lot. The configuration was informed by the total number of parking spaces which are required for 1 Annabelle Lane, which is why it's a little bit of an oddly shaped parcel.
Okay. And then I also see from the site plan, you continue, I mean, right now we have a cul-de-sac, but you're continuing that right away to go past the proposed project. And what would that connect to in the future? Sorry if you mentioned that previously.
So we've included that roadway within our site, and part of the city's long-term plan is that the road is connected on the other side of the property line on the adjacent parcel and connects through to Crow Canyon Place, which is another cul-de-sac roughly, or court within the Crow Canyon Commons Shopping Center. So it would become a through street. Within our development, we're putting in the first segment, which is the 26-foot wide roadway, which the intention is that in future development, that segment would be picked up and then connect through.
Okay, thank you. That was all my clarifying questions.
Okay. Sugar.
Yeah, I just have really one question. So thank you for clarifying where that road was going, because I was trying to think to myself, where is cars going to go? So the main street there, got a beautiful street line with trees. Is there any plan on continuing that all the way through the new street, so that it's not just all of a sudden this beautiful canopy of trees and then just open space, so that it has sort of a connectivity piece?
So the intention of what I'm going to answer a question that you didn't ask, and then I'll answer your question. So part of what we've studied with CBG, our civil engineer, is how do we add in that sidewalk that I mentioned in the introduction? What we're going to be able to, or what we've currently proposed, we're awaiting feedback from city staff, is that we would keep the trees that are existing on Annabelle Lane and essentially put the northbound lane on a road diet. So we would shrink it and add in a 5-foot wide sidewalk so that we could keep that really great tree canopy that's on Annabelle Lane. And then what we're proposing is that there will be trees and landscaping essentially on the the western side of the new road that we're developing. And then ultimately it's against a property line. So we would propose that there's landscaping on the western side of that new road extension.
And how will that impact the traffic flow with a smaller road for Doris Eaton and so forth right now?
So CBG, our civil engineer, they have studied what it looks like. And essentially what they're doing is they are modifying the left turn lane that would get into the school. But from a road capacity perspective, The engineers say that it works, but we're waiting to hear back from the city that their engineers agree with our engineers.
Thank you.
On the future right of way, today there's a gate that's on that property and it's locked up. Did you envision keeping the gate or continuing to block pedestrian access back over to Crow Canyon Commons from this project?
So the gate from time to time is open. It's typically open during daytime hours as an informal access point. So we would expect that we're kind of building that roadway up until that property line. Perhaps as an interim condition, we put in landscaping or make it a little bit nicer until that roadway comes, but open for comments and feedback on how we treat that little segment, given that it won't be a through street. And although maybe there's a development that's coming in tomorrow that we'll put in the balance of the through street.
Okay, that helps. The other, well, I guess these are more comments than questions at this point. I think that's it. Okay.
My initial question was in terms of the sidewalk, and I think you already addressed it, which is as you're coming out of Annabelle, there is a stoplight there at Annabelle and Norris. And currently on the south side of Norris Canyon Road, which is the Toyota property, there is no sidewalk. And I believe
there is a sidewalk on the eastern side of Bishop Drive. And so there's an existing sidewalk on the eastern side of Bishop Drive, and then there's an existing sidewalk on Norris Canyon. And so our sidewalk would connect to the Norris Canyon sidewalk, and then you can cross you can cross Norris to get to the Bishop Drive sidewalk that's along the Toyota property.
Okay, but I was thinking along Norris Canyon Road. It's okay. I just want to make sure that as we are,
You're right. There is not a sidewalk on the Toyota side, but there is a sidewalk on the northern side.
Correct.
So there exists a continuous sidewalk that would offer access to Iron Horse Trail. And then City Village would have a portion of sidewalk, but you're right, there's a missing sidewalk along Toyota.
right. And so I was just trying to envision children getting to school, particularly if we want to encourage bicycle traffic and so forth. So the proposal will still be the basic 4-foot sidewalk. I mean, what is currently there along Norris. I know you're not responsible for the whole thing.
So the sidewalk the new sidewalk is a 5-foot wide sidewalk that we're proposing.
Okay. And do you know what the bike lane provision is on Norris Canyon through there? That's really a left field question. It's not fair to ask, but
I apologize. I do not know that one, but perhaps Mr. Barr or Ms. Chamberlain do.
anybody know? In-house?
Yeah, we can get back to you on that, but I do believe there is a bike lane along Norris that runs from Bishop to Camino Ramon.
Okay.
I
think you're right.
Positive.
Okay.
There is.
Again, I'm just envisioning as we increase families there and children needing to get to the other elementary schools at the middle school. That was my only question so far. Thank you. Okay.
I did have one more question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's not a comment, it's a question. Under the acoustics part, it says that mitigation measures to offset environmental noise, including higher STC ratings for window and door assemblies. Could you expand on what that might be down the road?
Yeah, so what that means is we had an acoustical engineer come on site and take readings of the ambient sound levels. And what you can do when you build a wall typology is you can change the depth of framing or increase the layers of drywall, or you can have a different dimension on your window pane, a thicker window pane or multiple window panes. And what that does is it provides a sound barrier to the exterior environment. And so there are different ways to construct the wall in order to mitigate the existing environmental noise.
Okay. Any other questions before we open? All right. So at this time, we'd like to open public comment. Do we have any speaker cards?
I don't have any speaker cards or written public comment for this item.
And nothing written?
No.
Okay, very good. So we will close public comment. All right. So commissioners, this is your time to add additional feedback. Ladies first.
Okay. As Ms. Hill already mentioned, the color scheme. I was a little bit sad to see just one color scheme for all the buildings. Can we think about maybe a couple for the different buildings instead of the same color scheme for all the buildings? I don't know what kind of architectural style this is. It's like a mashup. Do you have the architectural style that this is? It's almost like one is competing with the other. One side looks very different than the other side. Is that just to add visual interest on either side?
Are you referring to the front and the rear elevations?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the front elevation obviously has a lot more articulation and depth on it to play with as far as, you know, the parapet features and the decks and things like that, where obviously the rear and the alley were fairly constrained to, you know, the space that we have for the alley and the wall space. So it's, you know, far less articulated. It's a contemporary style. We do have a hip roof on the building behind the parapets and at the rear to provide the 30-foot eave required for fire access to the roof. Otherwise, you end up with aerial trucks and things that really decrease your densities dramatically.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I thought the project did a really good job in incorporating paseos. I would just like to see, if you look at the site plan, it's a little bit hard to read. Would you be able to change the slide to show the site plan? Yeah, we don't have a better one.
Do you want to go specifically to the Paseo or you want to go to the, we can go to.
No, the
site.
overall
Okay.
site plan. So along building 1 and 2, like on the western side, you could see that the Paseo just kind of stops short there and doesn't fully wrap around the west corner of building 1. I know that's probably a little hard to read there. And then
we do have a sidewalk along, and I think I should have used a larger site plan. There is a sidewalk that wraps along building 2 and building 1. But we can provide additional detail and dimensions the next time that we present.
would it not be like possible for like the Paseo to go fully and connect in that green space along the western side?
We can study it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really cool to have a Paseo loop throughout the community. I know that there's sidewalks, but I think it wouldn't add too much. I think you already have the building blocks there and it's a matter of just connecting things a little bit more. And then same thing for building 8 and 9. I think it would be cool to just have a loop of paseos that go around the site, especially because this is a smaller site. I don't think it would be hard or put too much strain in terms of the project's budget. And then again, like I mentioned in Bishop Ranch 8, just seeing more pedestrian features like crosswalks and so forth that is lacking in City Village. So for instance, you could see that Paseo that's in between building 8 and 9 on the east. If we could have a crosswalk that is from that Paseo to the sidewalk across the street. Just simple things like that, like at the focal points, someone's going to want to cross the street there. We already know that. We're setting ourselves up for it, so let's not set ourselves up for failure. The other thing was, I'm not sure what the landscaping requirements are here. But it would be nice to see a pocket park within this community. Potentially that townhome on the northern side of Building 8 on the northeast corner. When I looked at the parks that are around this neighborhood in particular, the closest park was the future park that will be built at City Village, which is 0.9 miles away. And the magic number for walking distance to a park is 0.5 miles. So having like a small pocket park of, a quarter of an acre, I think is typically what a pocket park is called for in terms of size. And then I think is the community amenity, according to the multifamily objective design standards, you're supposed to provide one community amenity. What is that here?
So we do have a seat wall and a trellis just to the south of the unit you had recommended removing. It's a bit obscured, but it's
Yeah, okay. It's just like that seating around a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it would be nice to have a pocket park in that area instead of just seating around a tree. Maybe I think it would be a better amenity wise, especially to these townhomes that have limited outdoor space. And that's all my feedback. I thought it was a nice project. I think there's just a little bit more pushing in terms of the walkability and the connectivity in the park space.
Commissioner Curtis?
Yeah, overall, I think it's a great project. I'm glad to see that we have some housing for people to be able to purchase, even though they're condos and not necessarily single-family homes, and the lower affordable units and so forth, which is great. I'm also glad to see that we put in some additional parking for guests. And it looks like, if I read this correctly, it says you're exceeding the maximum parking standards by the state density bonus. That's what it's,
yes, we are exceeding the state density bonus.
yeah, which is fantastic. Glad to see that we're exceeding instead of going the opposite way. I do assume that eventually people are going to probably park in the Doris Eaton parking slot, though, if there's too many people or the spots are taken up. So I don't know how that's going to impact. Maybe on the weekend, it's probably not as a big deal because the school's out. And then, of course, you have the 24-hour fitness on the other side. So it's a busy area. So I do think that making sure that we think about how we're going to control the flow of traffic. Glad that we have a stop sign there, making sure that the sidewalks are also really well lit so that people, 24-hour fitness is a busy place. And so is UPS. So we just, a lot of traffic going in and out right in that area. I agree with Commissioner Avila about maybe a little bit of a park or something where people could go, like you were talking about earlier, with pet relief and things of that nature. But it's just a place where kids could go with a small grass area or whatever it might be, as opposed to just the tree with the seating. I think it would be a nice place as well. So, but overall, I think this is a good project, and looking forward to seeing where it goes. And one last comment. I'm glad to see that a lot of them have bedrooms available on the first floor as well, which I know that Commissioner Cusack is always thinking about people with mobility issues. So I'm glad that has been thought about. So thank you.
Gentlemen?
First of all, I didn't realize that there was a plan for the city to extend Annabelle Lane into the office park there. I hope it doesn't turn out to be like a Twin Creeks Drive extension that we did a lot of prep and a lot of thinking about. And I'm trying to remember when I visited. First of all, the gate was locked, but it was on a Sunday during the day. So it was definitely sunny, but it was not at night, but it was a weekend. I think opening up that gate would be a very nice amenity to the neighbors there, because we are trying to encourage them to walk, and there is a shopping center with a grocery store right next door. And as I recall, there were actually 3 or 4 steps to come from the one property to the parking lot of the office building there. So I'm really surprised that we think that's going to become a road for cars in the future, but it might not. But my recommendation is that we think about that as it's going to be a walkable trail to get between the residential and the commercial, up to and including managing to keep it open, during the day, during the night, because there are restaurants there, and to think about lighting along there, because when I saw the steps and they were a little bit beat up, which is not part of this project, I would hate for it to be unsafe to go from one project to the next. Similarly, to explore, and I think that it's a pretty dense set of landscaping between 24-Hour Fitness and Annabelle Lane, that so much so that you can't get from one to the other. I think it would be nice to be able to figure out a way to let people get to the gym without having to walk out to Norris Canyon, because I think that might be a nice amenity for those neighbors as well. When it comes to traffic, and I understand the traffic engineers are going to take a look, and I'm not sure if there's anything can be done in the morning when it's drop-off time at Doris Eaton. The queuing comes pretty far up and over 680 to wait for people to make that left turn into the project. So I would want to make sure that we've taken a look, which might be a little bit difficult because it is summertime. So the enrollment might not be quite as much at summer camp as it is during school, but that does back up. And then similarly, it is an unprotected left lane coming in and out of Annabelle and Bishop. So would like them to at least take a look at the traffic and the signal at that intersection. I think we've talked about architecture, colors, flat walls, colors. I'll echo Commissioner Avila's comment. It does feel, a little brown and a little dull. And I also like the recommendation that we consider doing something by way of a small pocket park with the barbecue or something in it, just because it is fairly dense. There's not a lot in there to do, and it is kind of a walk to the closest park. And I think those are my comments for tonight for both staff and ARB and the applicant.
Commissioner Wallace.
First, I was out there yesterday afternoon, and first of all, it's noisy as hell. You can't avoid it from the freeway. I know that the application said that you've done at least a preliminary acoustic study, and I think that that should be provided to the commission so that we have some comfort that the people who live in those units aren't going to have blown out eardrums in 2 months. The second thing is, in addition to being loud, it's also very close to the freeway. And when we were looking at the Primrose Daycare, which is also along 680, they provided a risk assessment because it was so close to the freeway that dealt with the issue of pollutants from cars on that. I know that your application talked about installing filters, but I think that there should be some type of study that indicates the filtering that you're proposing is sufficient to deal with the risk that's included in that type of proximity to Highway 680. The third is, I feel for Sunset in dealing with that particular property. It's really at a dead end, and I know as the oldest office building in Bishop Ranch, it probably has served its useful life and probably is no longer usable as an office building. And so turning it into housing, to me, even though it's a dead end, seems to me to be a reasonable, practical use for that property. The problem I have is that, as you pointed out, the zoning and general plan designation for that area is mixed use, which requires a non-residential component. And I'm glad that you looked at trying to include Doris Eaton School as part of a larger project, so you would have a horizontal component. And it's unfortunate in a way that you didn't have enough density, because otherwise you'd have to build a lot taller building. My concern is this: it's not to allow housing on that site, it's how we go about it. I don't have a problem with housing, but I have a real concern about using a concession under the state density bonus law to accomplish that for 2 reasons. The first is I've looked at the density bonus law in connection with that type of concession, and I don't believe that it covers amending the general plan, which is essentially what you're talking about. An alternative I would like the commission to look at is changing the designation of that spot, or at least that area that would allow housing on that site. Now, I know that that is sort of tantamount to spot zoning, which is frowned upon, but it's not totally inappropriate depending on the circumstance. What I am really concerned about is not having housing there. What I am concerned about is having a developer use that as a precedent to go into our mixed-use other areas, waive the concession as a basis for eliminating non-residential commercial uses from a project in a mixed-use area to allow 100% housing akin to what we already have been forced to do with the housing opportunity sites. We have a number of those in the area along Crow Canyon Road. That's the area that I'm primarily concerned with because so much of that area is commercial mixed use. If a developer can come in and say, I don't want to build any non-residential or commercial structures, and they can do it using the concession procedure, I foresee that that whole area may be eviscerated and reduced to housing. And given our city's economic situation, where we have a structural deficit every year, that's the last thing I want to do. Moreover, we have other areas in the city that are in the same boat that are mixed use that could be the subject of 100% housing by using the concession device that is in the San Ramon Village Plan area, and of all places, our friends at Marketplace. So I would like staff and the commission to look at if there's some other way to permit housing on that site that still leaves the city with the ability to enforce a commercial component in a mixed-use area. Other than that, I said I don't have a problem with housing on that site. I just don't want to cascade that concession issue into something that effectively destroys commercial use in San Ramon. And that's my feedback.
Okay, so we have provided feedback to staff and applicant. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing this again. Okay. Let's see, where am I on my agenda? All right. Changing it up. Item 11.3, the year in review. Okay. Mr. Driscoll, you have the honors. We seem to have been busy. I know. Was it something we said?
All right. So this item is for, or as we do every year, a year in review for the Planning Commission action items for the previous fiscal year. And some of this will be familiar to you, but we're going to go through. So in the last year, we've done some additional general plan 2040 implementation. We were talking about tonight the objective design and development standards. You reviewed in fall of last year. The council adopted them in November. You're seeing projects already starting to use those through a checklist. The climate action plan, the commission provided input on the development and feedback for CAP implementation. Just last week, last Tuesday, the council adopted the climate action plan update. So that's effective. And then the zoning ordinance text amendment, there was some feedback provided by the commission last December on some study sessions for some initial zoning ordinance amendments related to some parking, land use, and beekeeping. So we'll be working on incorporating those on the zoning ordinance text amendment as we continue to work on that later this year. As we do every year, we have our general plan annual report. It's always in March of every year. Commission reviewed that before going on to council, and we submitted that up to the state by April 1st as required. The commission approved a minor subdivision of the Chevron Park site for the Future Orchards project into 2 parcels. And so the formal development applications for the orchard project were submitted. Those will be coming to the Planning Commission in the future. The commission approved applications in September for a fitness health facility at 2600 Hooper Drive in an existing building. There's an open workout area, parking reduction. It's for a business called the Lab Gym. That's in plan check with the building department and still going through review. Last September, the commission recommended the council approve a zoning ordinance text amendment related to commercial recreation facility land use requiring a use permit in the DMU South and CCMU zone districts. The council adopted that last November. The city hasn't received any formal applications, use permit applications as a result of that amendment yet, but that has been implemented and it's effective. The commission approved a development application for a 1.4 acre park in Bishop Ranch 1A, the Heritage Park, for a privately owned, publicly accessible park within the City Walk master plan area next to Belmont and related apartments. So that is continuing to move forward. In November last year, the commission approved an application for a use permit to allow AT&T to remove some existing telecommunication facility at the San Ramon Public Service Center and construct a 100-foot tall monopole with 12 antennas. No building permit plans have been submitted quite yet, but it's still approved, and so construction is still to be determined on that. The commission approved in December at the Bishop Ranch 7 site, the Bartlett residential development for 190 housing units. So grading plans for that were recently submitted and started review with city staff. Construction's to be determined as they haven't submitted the building permit plans yet or final map for that. In December, the commission approved a time extension for an older project. This is at the Golden Skate property, 2701 Hooper, for the Windflower Townhomes project, which was for 47 multifamily and 16 ADUs. The commission approved an 18-month time extension until June 2026. There's been no plan submitted since the time extension was approved, so construction is to be determined on that. In January, the commission approved the Woodside Canyon development at 18 Crow Canyon Court, removing the existing office building on site, constructing 54 multifamily units. The building permit plans have been submitted and we've started the review of that. Construction is still to be determined. They still have a fair amount of building permit review to go, and they still need to get their final map approved. Bishop Ranch 11, residential development was approved by the commission in March for 195 housing units. Demolition plans have been submitted, so those have begun some initial review with city staff. As with these other projects, construction is to be determined with their final map and building permit plans yet to be reviewed. In March, the commission recommended council approval of a general plan and zoning ordinance text amendments to the DMU North minimum site-wide floor area ratio standard. The council did approve that on May 13th, and that's effective now. And we've been talking about this tonight, the Camino Ramon Apartments at Eden Housing Project, as you have mentioned, was recently approved this month. And so construction is still to be determined on that since it was just recently approved by the commission. And also this month, the commission approved Little Bridges Daycare, expanding the capacity at the existing Canyon Creek Presbyterian Church, and construction is to be determined on that. That's all within the existing building. So the next few slides are approved projects that are under construction. City Village, as you had some discussions tonight, is under construction with the 404 total units. 62% of the building permits have been issued. This aerial photo kind of shows about that of the site, the number of units have been constructed on site there. Belmont Village completed construction and they began occupancy earlier this year. Not sure if it's completely occupied yet, but the construction is complete. The fire district training facility at the corner of Bollinger and Crow Canyon Road is still under construction. The commission approved this in February 2023, so that's moving along. Also, the Primrose Daycare Center, this was approved by the commission in May of 2022. It's under construction. It's for daycare facility at the Bollinger Crossing Center with an outdoor play area and up to 224 students. So it's still continuing construction. Nine Horse Village development, the corner of Alcosta and Crow Canyon Road, which was approved by the City Council on the call for review. Recently received a final map approval from the council in May, and they've actually started grading operations recently. They're still going through building permit plan check review, so vertical construction will be later this year likely. Next few slides are approved projects that are in building permit plan check. The 2041 Deerwood Drive Townhomes project was approved by the commission in April 2023 for 61 townhomes. It's in building permit plan check. They've done some initial grading, but construction is still to be determined because they don't have their building permit plans approved quite yet. The City Walk BR1A apartments or related apartments is in building permit plan check, so construction's to be determined, but that will be coming up. Similarly, the TTLC townhomes is in the San Ramon Village specific plan area at 500 Deerwood. It's approved for 57 for sale multifamily units, is in plan check, building permit plan check. They also have their final map that was approved. So hopefully once the plans, building permit plans are approved, they'll start construction. The El Nido Assisted Living project was approved by the commission in November 2022 for a 72-bed residential care facility, and also integrating the El Nido house that's on site. They're still in plan check, building permit plan check, so again, construction's to be determined on that one. And then lastly, we have some approved projects that are still to be determined on construction timelines. The Marketplace mixed-use development is still going through, there's some ongoing litigation still going through on that project, so that has not been resolved, so construction is unknown, to be determined at this point. Avalon Bay Apartments for 457 units. Within the City Walk Master Plan at BR3A, likewise has started site development review with the city, but construction's to be determined on that one. It was approved about a year ago by the commission. And then the City Center Hotel project is still approved, but construction's to be determined. This is at the corner of Community Remote and Bishop Drive for a 169 room hotel. They'll have to determine the operator for the site, but it's still approved and can move forward once they move forward with building permits. So that's all I have for the year in review with the commission.
So far, so good. Makes me wonder what the total was. I should have been adding it up as we were going. Do we know how many units we've approved so far?
Don't have that off the top of my head.
Typically with approved housing projects, we include a summary for the no net loss calculations, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was just interesting, as we were turning pages, what the number might be. But anyways, I digress. Do we have any liaison reports?
Question before we get to that.
Okay.
On the City Center Hotel, it was approved back in July of 2020, which is almost 5 years ago. Is there some date by which they have to do something, turn over dirt?
They're vested with development agreements, and so the current development agreement will be up for extension in about another year.
Okay.
So it has a 5-year and then another 5-year
Okay.
option. But
Okay.
yeah, so right now we just are waiting for the decision from someone who wants to build it.
Okay. Well, thank you for the information.
I did have one other question, and maybe it wasn't last year, but it felt like it was. The Chang property, is anything, I know they came before the commission. It may not have been this calendar year,
It
for
was.
something. It wasn't last year. I think I heard that ownership may have changed or nothing. No, it's still pending in the same status. Yeah.
I know that they were marketing the property.
Okay.
I can tell you that the LAFCO approvals expired, so
Okay.
they are no longer eligible for annexation without reprocessing, and the city approvals have now expired.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you look like.
Yeah, I have a
you're
liaison
halfway.
report. Last night I went to the Open Space Advisory Committee. We actually had 2 council members there. So we talked about 2 things. One is, believe it or not, they're almost, not quite, but almost done with annexing portions of Doherty Valley to the Geological Hazard District. They showed us a map. There's a big portion off of the southern portion of Doherty that is yet to be formally accepted because Toll Brothers has to do a punch list to do a couple things, but they're almost at that point. Second of all, there was discussion about the Art and Wind Festival. The Open Space Committee booth was well publicized, or well patronized is a better word. We got a fair amount of feedback. The feedback we got is going to be used to work with the consultant that's been hired by the city to develop a trails master plan, sort of the analog to the bike master plan. Originally, they hoped to get that done by October, but at last night, we were told that probably had slipped a bit until December. That's my report.
Anybody else?
Do.
Okay.
Do. The ARB has been meeting via special meetings, primarily looking at orchards. At the last meeting, they provided final feedback, and the recommendation was to send it on its way. Interesting, and something that we saw tonight in the year in review, one of the discussions the ARB was asking about was when the project gets built, and they're going to start construction at the south end, which is the one next to Inverness Park. The architects were asking, what is the plan for all of the land in front along Bollinger? And what Sunset said they're currently thinking, rather than just leave it dirt, they would actually hydro seed it and it would become grass of some sort while it's getting built. And it just clicked in my mind. You remember we talked about the commercial recreation facility outdoor is a possibility for other things taking place. So Sunset just said they have some ideas on how to make it less just a vacant lot over time. So it might all come together and connect there. But they did spend a lot of time talking about the project. I think they gave really good feedback. So looking forward to us getting it down the road. And then I attended the city council meeting the other night. And as was mentioned, they did adopt the climate action plan. Very little, discussion or changes to, in fact, none. They accepted the plan as we saw it. So that is moving forward. And the Transportation Advisory Committee had their meeting for real canceled, this time. So unlike the pretend cancel I thought the ARB was doing last time.
And I have no report, sorry. Anybody else? No? All right, future meetings.
Okay, as you're aware, City Council is going to be interviewing prospective planning commissioners in the next week, I believe.
Yes.
And so on July 1, we will have swearing in of new commissioners, election of chair and vice chair, the recognition of outgoing commissioners. And then we have a couple items that are sort of haven't quite landed yet. We're trying to make sure that they're going to work and the noticing will work. And so there will be a few other things, probably July 1 and July 15th. It's just we're not quite sure of the order of things.
I did forget one thing. City manager did say, and I didn't bring those notes, but pay attention because the bridge will be opening in July, you know, with a grand opening and a ribbon cutting, all those kind of things. I just don't remember the date. Maybe you have it off the top of your head. The 18th.
19th.
19th.
Saturday.
A Saturday. It's a Saturday. I knew it was a Saturday. I just wasn't sure which one. So, you know, if your time allows, you should come and be able to walk across the bridge the first day it's open.
Excellent. Anything else for the good of the order?
I do have one thing.
Okay.
Because I may not be here on July 1st. I wanted to thank Jean for her great leadership over the last year as our chair of the Planning Commission and getting us through what seemed to be a very, very, very busy year with a lot of discussion on not only the housing, but also how that housing might be built out. You've done a fantastic job and I enjoy sitting next to you. I hope those that are on the commission in the future have the same opportunity to work with you as I did.
Well, thank you very much. This is quite unexpected, certainly appreciated. And we want to thank you for your service to the Planning Commission. It's one of those positions that you don't know how detailed it's going to be till you are presented with the agendas and you sit down and you work your way through it. And so we really appreciate your time on the commission, the effort you put in, your consensus building and discussions were active and much appreciated. And we wish you well as you leave us. We will again recognize you next week, but you know, maybe we'll have to, you know, door dash something your way. There's usually, you know, lovely parting gifts, but you were supposed to part next time. So, you know, send somebody. No, just kidding. We really appreciate it. And don't be a stranger. Thank you. Thank you for your kind remarks. And Eric, I know you have remarks, but you'll just have to wait because we're just that kind of group. So bring your tissues next time.
I will hold off on my farewell address until the first, but I did want to say, since he was here, to David, I want to thank you for serving on the commission. One of the strengths of the commission is the fact that we have 5 people from different backgrounds, and like a jury, they look at something and they look at it different ways. None of us has a monopoly on the truth or what we see. So it's very interesting to see you and Betty look at the same project, come up with different ideas. And that's one of the strengths of the commission. And that's one of the reasons that we exist. And I appreciate the time and effort you put into doing that. I thank you and I wish you the best of luck going forward.
Anybody else? Gary?
I was going to make my comments next week, but rather than make you watch the YouTube video.
Here we go.
No. Yeah. That's it. That's it. No, thank you. Thank you, Dave, for raising your hand. I know how hard it is to work full time and also come to commission meetings. And you were always thoughtful, prepared, engaging, and thank you for that. And as a fellow worker of a utility, I know how hard it can be sometimes working for a monopoly and how hard it is to do both these things in fairness, but you did a great job and we're going to miss you. And thank you for joining us for the few years. And it was been a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you.
With no further comments, it is 8:38.